And as if those two things weren't enough, there's a third super catalyst now at play, and it's the hype that everybody's heard about, which is generative AI. And generative AI pushes you in the direction of wanting to leverage as much of the data as you can to build the best models and then to go on to serve customers with great customer experience. But in order to do that really well, you got to focus again on data management.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Ravi Raghu. Ravi is the president of Capital One Software. Capital One is a financial services company that earns nearly $40 billion in annual revenue, and Ravi's been with the company for more than 23 years. In his current role, he leads several major businesses for Capital One while also serving on the company's executive committee as a direct report to the chief executive officer, Rich Fairbank. Across his time with Capital One, he's pursued a number of entrepreneurial pursuits, building and scaling several businesses. Equally as important, this has been a journey of building and developing high-performing teams that deliver breakthrough experiences for customers. Capital One Software was founded in 2022, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about its constitution, its mission, as well as some of the specific offerings that have been driven through Ravi and his team through this conversation. Ravi, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Well, thank you for having me, Peter. It's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Wonderful. I am as well. Ravi, maybe we begin with Capital One Software. As I mentioned, as you've mentioned to me in the past, the company stood this up as of 2022. Talk a bit about what Capital One Software is and why back in 2022 the idea of setting up a separate software business came about for the organization.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. Look, Peter, right from the founding days of our company, we have realized that data and technology have been at the heart of everything that we do. I've been with the company 23 years, and across my variety of different experiences in various lines of businesses, when you peel the onion a few layers, it always has come back down to data, how we harness the data, and the technology, and how we actually leverage the data to provide, experiences for our customers, the 100 million customers that we serve as Capital One. So for the longest time, we've been obsessing about how do we be at the forefront of data and the forefront of technology. And our journey of becoming a technology company that happens to do banking, that's the thing that we've been on. And you've heard stories of how Capital One has gone on that journey for over the last decade. And so along the way, we realized that there is massive power in going and operating in the cloud. So we went in as one of the largest enterprises to go all in the public cloud. As we went through that journey, we realized that for us to operate in a high quality manner in the cloud required us to build up a bunch of different capabilities, and particularly centered around data management and all of the technology that leverages the data management, the tools that allow you to do the data management. And so, as we went on that journey, we also realized that, gosh, like if we are, in a sense, blazing the trail here for many other enterprises to follow, like wouldn't they benefit from that? And we got a bunch of early feedback that other companies were craving for these capabilities. And so that, in essence, was the germ of an idea of Capital One Software. So in 2022, we set out with a mandate to build a business unit that is focused on enterprise business-to-business software that is largely battle-tested at Capital One. Like all the learnings from Capital One through our journey, we're able to put that up in a commercial product that we can then offer to the world, so that we can actually enable the rest of the world to innovate as well. So that is, in a sense, the concept of Capital One Software.
Fascinating insights, and if I may paraphrase, identifying opportunities to pursue internally where other companies, comparable sorts of organizations, have the same pain points that you were addressing for Capital One itself, and then productizing this to the degree of actually making it developing a go-to-market for-profit business within a business, if you will. You mentioned you, perhaps among others, reached out to other companies to validate that this was not just a Capital One a set of issues that you were resolving, but something that had a much broader application. What sorts of companies were you speaking with that help with that validation, if I may? And I guess by extension, what companies did you pursue? Was it mostly other financial institutions? Was it other organizations? How did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we were, take for example our very first product. It's Slingshot. That's focused on Snowflake. We are an early customer of Snowflake, one of the largest customers to date, and we kept hearing feedback from Snowflake as well that the way we actually have adopted Snowflake is one of the best ways to adopt Snowflake. So we kept hearing that feedback. We went and spoke to other customers for whom we were references. And we kept hearing feedback from them as well that, gosh, like we would love to get some of those capabilities. So that was the earliest source of feedback. When I stepped into this role as the head of the business for Capital One Software, one of the first things I did was actually go and speak to a variety of different companies because what we didn't know was, is this sort of a handful of companies with like bespoke needs, or is it actually a broader demand for the capabilities that we built internally? And that is an important thing for us to really validate early on in our journey. So I spoke to a variety of different companies, the heads of data and heads of technology of a variety of different companies early on, and very quickly we realized that our journey is something that others would benefit from, and all of our capability is something that other companies would benefit from. And there was inherently both the credibility that we can bring in data management because of everything that we are known for in our 25 plus years of heritage of like data and obsessing about data management, but also about all of our technology transformation that we've been through. And so as we articulate that story, other companies react and say, oh my gosh, like we are on the same journey. Could we benefit from all the things that you've already learned and incorporated? And so that was some of our early days here. And then we went on to, double down and invest in building out this business unit.
Fascinating. And it sounds like you reached out, if I may, you will correct me if I've got this wrong, reached out to people who ran tech and digital or run perhaps still tech and digital for a variety of other organizations.
Right.
These would be, if I'm not mistaken, peers of Rob Alexander, your colleague and longtime chief information officer of the organization. May I
Uh-huh.
ask how you and he and his team work together, or the extent to which his validation of some of the ideas that you were proving might be a good starting point as to what others who share similar responsibilities might
Yeah.
want, need, etc.
I think the simplest way to think about it is Capital One is the alpha client, if I may. And in fact, the place where we build the software to serve the alpha client, Capital One. So Rob and his engineering team works in a very integrated manner. The engineers are all integrated into the various lines of businesses, and there are central enterprise teams that actually build up the core capability. And we use that at scale for all of our activities in the company. My job as the head of Capital One Software, I look at those learnings, I look at those capabilities, and I say, gosh, like this is incredible value inside the company. And I'm seeing demand for it outside. So how do we take that capability and morph it so that it's not a Capital One bespoke thing, but it's actually applicable for the entire world with additional capabilities built in so it can actually allow for configurations in different types of settings and take that and then go to market. So in a sense, I'm basically selling all the software that Rob's team has built, but added into that innovation that makes it easily adaptable to the client's environment and client's needs. And so that is how we work together. It is at the end of the day one engineering team that works in a close knit manner, and there is a very clear focus on like the go to market within the context of our B2B software unit.
Very interesting. And describe, if you would, Ravi, the team that you lead since 2022. How have you built that team? To what extent was it drawing upon existing talent already in the company, like yourself, of course,
Yeah.
versus bringing in people who knew what good looks like, perhaps in what you hoped to accomplish with this organization?
Yeah, I think the simplest way I would describe it is we have tried to bring the best of both, best of Capital One, both for all of our ability to do risk management and being well managed and like being very business focused as a client of the software. So you bring in best of that, our best of engineers from within the company, and couple that with the best talent in the software world. And so like we have a good amalgamation. I would say it's nearly a 50-50 type of a split of like internal talent with external talent. And we're growing at a rapid pace. Right now, we are a few hundred people in this organization. Still early days, but we are growing pretty rapidly.
Well, you mentioned the first offering, Slingshot, and the extent to which it came about as the organization was an early customer of Snowflake. The way in which it was adopted was among the best you validated, and that these were the sort of kernels of ideas that might mean might be the basis of an offering. You have since developed your second offering, Data Bolt, and I wonder if you could talk a bit about, as you have just with the first offering, what the genesis of the idea was and the problem that the product solves for.
Yeah. Look, I mean, Slingshot was our first foray, and as we took it to market, it's a contained product. It actually allows companies to adopt Snowflake really well. But in that process, it created an alibi for us to speak to lots and lots of customers and prospects. And we always knew we're not going to stop with Slingshot. We knew that we're going to step into a broader space of data management and providing data management capabilities for the world. And as we started, understanding the customer better and their needs better, our thoughts of like the next set of capabilities are informed by what our learnings are in this. And data security is a place that naturally kind of people went to. There is a bit of a groundswell, if I may, that's happening very naturally. I like to describe it as there's a tsunami coming, and the tsunami is being created by three macro forces that are at play. One is just the sheer volume of data breaches. The volume of data breaches is growing. The impact of data breaches is pretty massive. Two is sort of appropriately so. There is a ton of focus from a sense how is sensitive data managed and privacy regulations, and that has been getting more and more important and complex to deal with for enterprises. And as if those two things weren't enough, there's a third super catalyst now at play, and it's the hype that everybody's heard about, which is generative AI. And generative AI pushes you in the direction of wanting to leverage as much of the data as you can to build the best models and then to go on to serve customers with great customer experiences. But in order to do that really well, you got to focus again on data management so that you can actually proliferate at scale the usage of generative AI. And so these three things have like pushed customers to crave for a better way to do data security. And that's really the genesis of Data Bolt. And so when we heard that, we realized, oh my gosh, like we've been on this journey. We've got internal capabilities to serve up this need. So why not go and launch our capability, which is really our answer to the case is tokenization. I can talk a lot more about it as you like, but really offer that through Data Bolt as a commercial offering.
And if I may, just as you talked about the genesis being internal before going external with your first offering, to what extent is Data Bolt been leveraged internally? I might mention, though, I think everyone would agree, Capital One is a world-class IT organization, like so many great IT organizations. You also experienced a breach, so this is something the organization has seen firsthand, certainly. I wonder how the lessons of that led to internal solutions, likewise, that then can be taken outside.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, the technology capabilities and data management capabilities we have built have started with first serving our own needs. And so, when you're talking about serving, 100 million customers at scale, you're talking about a pretty massive enterprise need that we ourselves have for all of our core financial services offerings. And so we've been on this journey of tokenizing data. We believe that traditional data security methods don't quite, meet the demands of a modern technology when you're serving it at that scale. Traditional methods have a lot of limitations relative to scalability, relative to complexity, latency, costs. And so we realized very early that tokenization is an elegant way to take care of our data security needs. And we've been on this journey for a long period of time. And you also mentioned, I mean, so our learnings of tokenization has been there for a long time. We also learned along the way through the breach that we ourselves faced that, gosh, like this tokenization thing, I mean, we're glad we're on that journey for a long time because that really helped us out because it made the data that was breached, it made it kind of worthless for the perpetrator. And so that the learning that we took away from that, in addition to building additional cyber defenses, we really doubled and tripled down on making our tokenization that much better. And so today we go on to tokenize, over 100 billion operations a month at scale with incredible performance. And so having eaten our own dog food in a sense that way, what we are doing is taking all those learnings and now packaging that up into a commercial offering called Data Bolt that the world can leverage. And when you look at data security offering, what does the customer really look for? The customer looks for lightning fast performance. Our Data Bolt, by the way, it's a play on words, Bolt being also like, denoting the speed. We get 4 million tokens per second with that. And so, you want lightning fast performance. This is lightning fast performance. Customers and people don't want their data to leave their environment to, for the purposes of data security. They wanted to keep it in their environment. And so data security offers a capability, the Data Bolt offers a capability to actually allow you to do the tokenization in your own environment. But you can deploy it in a wide variety of settings. If you're like fully in the cloud, you can deploy it. If you're on-prem, you can do it. If you have hybrid cloud, if you have multi-cloud, this thing actually works across all those environments. And that's really sort of the focus has really been about how do you take something that works beautifully in Capital One and then make it into a product called Data Bolt that will work in all these settings, which, by the way, comes in packaged with all the learnings of having battle tested it at scale at the size of Capital One, the enterprise. And so that, in a sense, is really what we are about here with Data Bolt.
Yeah, very interesting. You mentioned in terms of the factors, there were three that led to this that you noted before. The third of those, as you put it, was the hype everyone is hearing about generative artificial intelligence. And the need to focus on data management. I wanted to talk a little bit further about that. Late last year, I had a chance to speak with Prem Natarajan, the chief scientist and EVP and head of enterprise data and AI at Capital One, about some of his vision for the use of artificial intelligence in Capital One. But I'd love to hear from you, especially since you've indicated that as a prime factor that was an insight and a set of insights, perhaps, that led to this offering. Can you talk a bit about the means by which that offered those insights?
Yeah, and by the way, to be clear, it is one of those three. Each one of the factors I laid out, the number of data breaches, the privacy regulations being more complex, and each one by itself is reason alone to go into it. But I do believe that generative AI is going to be a real catalyst in the world adopting it. And why do I say that? If you look at the traditional, the history of like the data security here, the historical view has been keep everything in lock and key. I'm just simplifying, but like it's sort of like the metaphor is how do I keep everything in lock and key? When you look at generative AI, what do you want to do? You want all of the data available for the world's best generative AI models to go consume and like come up with insights so that it can take the next action, whether that's agentic AI, whatever the case might be. You want it to take the next action, but by consuming all the data. So inherently, there is a tension here. There's a tension of, gosh, on one hand, I want to like limit the number of people accessing this. I want to make sure that, that thing is like masked away or like the sensitive data doesn't like proliferate anywhere. I don't want AI models to learn from sensitive data and then like spit out answers that may have sensitive data in it. Right? Because at the end of the day, a model data in is data out. And so you got to like really worry about sensitive data going in could end up being sensitive data going out. And so I believe that the world is going to need a better way where they can actually democratize the use of generative AI by giving the ability to actually like learn from as much of the company's proprietary data, because that is a source of competitive advantage. But to do that without compromising on security. And I think that is the reason why this is going to be a groundswell from my perspective. And in pursuit of solving and providing a better way, that's really what Data Bolt is all about. Because what tokenization does is, pretty much through the entirety of the life of the data, instead of having the sensitive data, you can have a format preserving token that is a surrogate of the data, but you cannot actually decipher the original data from the surrogate. And so it keeps it safe. It can work seamlessly through all your systems and models and so on, without actually compromising on the original sensitivity of the data and without actually worrying about, gosh, like now what do I need to do about the privacy regulation, because that gets handled separately. And so, it's a very elegant solution, and it's certainly helping us in our own journey. When we look at generative AI at the company, the fact that we have tokenized data helps us like proliferate the usage of generative AI, a little bit more seamlessly than otherwise would have been the case. And so that is, in a sense, how I believe that this is going to enable both generative AI is going to be a catalyst, and Data Bolt is going to enable generative AI adoption at scale because we're solving the underlying problem.
Very interesting, especially as so many are rightfully seeing the risks associated, the risks in need of mitigation associated with advances in AI, generally speaking, and generative and agentic AI more specifically. I want
Yeah.
to talk a bit about your current customers who are already using Data Bolt. What benefits have they been seeing? And would love to hear more a bit about, you talked about the personas, the kinds of organizations that you worked with to validate the need. Presumably, many of those same companies became the early adopters of this. The extent to which you see this growing beyond that, I'd love to hear more about, who they are, at least other ways in which you would describe them, and likewise the benefits they're seeing in collaborating with you.
Yeah, we were pretty intentional about choosing our second product in Data Bolt in that we wanted it to be a very far-reaching impact. So when you look at data security, it's not limited to one or two industries. It's not limited to a handful of companies in those one or two industries. It is a thing that every company would care about pretty deeply. And so when you look at our target market, we think the world needs a better way in terms of data security. And so all the industries and all those companies in those industries are really our target market. And so, we've heard early feedback from several of our prospects and early conversations that we've been in with companies who have seen either demos or actually started using some of this capability. And one of those customers is, for example, EWS, early warning systems. They are more people, consumers would generally know of what they offer in the form of Zelle and Pays. They are the sort of the makers of Zelle, if I may. And so it's a top financial services company that actually handles data from tons and tons of banks. And so to actually allow for data security for them through Data Bolt is a thing that they're excited about. So they latched onto that journey. Early feedback from them is they've been blown away by our performance and how well it is serving their needs. And so we've been very encouraged by early feedback all around. And oh, by the way, one of the things that we're also realizing is that Slingshot, which works on Snowflake, because we have relationship with Snowflake and their customers, that's opening the door for Data Bolt as well. And early conversations there is pointing to both the needs that that customers have, but also the excitement that they have about having to leverage Data Bolt based on the performance that they see with our quick proof points.
Fascinating, really interesting, Ravi. I appreciate you sharing that. And I mean, as I think about the Slingshot, Data Bolts, the extent to which one and the insights associated with the former, in some ways, lead to the latter. Better governance of one's data is an important precursor before you get to the point of securing that data. I speak generally, very generally about the two different buckets here. And I wonder to what extent you see this as an ability perhaps to work around a variety of different technology topics and areas and opportunities and risks in helping both Capital One initially, but the broader set of organizations. As you think about, and I realize you're just in the throes of unrolling the latest offering, but as you think about the vision going forward, talk a bit about how you see this continuing to expand into other use cases or other topics or areas of need.
Yeah, and Peter, through my journey in the company and just the way I think about building businesses, at the end of the day, we are a medium where we are listening deeply to customer feedback and needs, and then translating back and serving those needs. And so, Data Bolt itself is informed by customer needs, and then we're taking that to market. Our subsequent offerings are going to have the same sort of approach. I suspect when we go into Data Bolt, there is going to be adjacent needs around data management capabilities. There's many places one could go. You could talk about scanning to find other things that need to be tokenized. You could talk about access control for who should get access to those tokenized data or the raw data, etc. There's many places one could go adjacent to this thing. We are not at the moment, talking about any of those things. But if I look at the world of data publishing, data consumption, data governance, and all the infrastructure management around those data capabilities, that whole thing is fair game from my standpoint. We have tons of capabilities in those areas. And so part of what we need to figure out as we go on this journey is what's the next thing that customers would really want here that we can, take and offer back in a way at scale that is impactful to the world. And so we're not in a position to announce those things just yet, but I suspect we'll actually go down the path of many more capabilities in data management more broadly.
Ravi, as you think about the B2B customers that you've historically served, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm somehow off on this, but they've not traditionally been the technology leaders within the companies that are your customers. And so it strikes me this is a bit of a different persona to pursue. And I wonder, as you think about that, and differences between the way in which you seek them out, you engage with them, and so on, different from other B2B personas within your customer set that have traditionally been who you've pursued, who you've partnered with?
Yeah, and again, the good news, by the way, Peter, is that B2B software has been around for a long period of time, and there is a sort of a treaded path to going about building the business and so on. The personas for Data Bolt, really, who would be most interested in this thing? And every company is structured a little bit differently because it depends on where the need is coming from. You could have business leaders looking to unlock value from sensitive data who are trying to solve the problem of how do I do that while still taking care of data security. So it could come from business leaders within the organization. It could come from like data stewards and sort of people in charge of data platforms. So the head of data, head of analytics is another group of people that would be interested in, or it could just come from the CISOs, like who are in charge of like security on the whole, who also oversee data security as a part of that program and could require that thing. And so the personas in these various companies do change a little bit depending on where the source of the demand is coming from, and that is also a little situational depending on the companies. But part of what we try to do is go firstly educate people on like the value of tokenization, the value of Data Bolt, and then have the conversations. The good news is that any door we knock on as Capital One, the door opens and we are welcome with like wide arms because of our journey and the credibility that we have as a company. And so, fortunately, I haven't yet had to deal with the problem of opening doors, but we are actually seeing that there is a tremendous demand, and the first foray of Slingshot is really also helping us open up those relationships in a material way. So.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, Ravi, the extent to which for quite some time now, Capital One has positioned itself as a technology company that happens to be in the financial services industry. There are a number of companies that refer to themselves accordingly, a tech company in the fill-in-the-blank industry. But it strikes me that this is something that is applied for some time, and this is yet another indication and validation that is in fact so, that a financial services organization would develop a robust software offering is truly remarkable, and appreciate you sharing a little bit more about the details of this business and its evolution with me today. It's been a great conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Peter. And thank you again for this opportunity. And I'm just so humbled by the fact that we stand on the shoulders of all the tech transformation that we have done as a company and get to build out Capital One software, and the fact that it's a virtuous cycle, because with Capital One software, we proliferate the brand further and are able to build for the world and bring all those learnings from the world back into the company. So it's a nice virtuous cycle there that gets created. But I think it's really special that we get to do this standing on the shoulders of the amazing work that the entire company has done.
Very, very well said. Thank you again, Ravi.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.